I'm going to talk about the Jewish inside me, and I don't know 100% of it. So this will be the first part, and it is done the 23rd September 2022, and I'm talking about what I know just now. And I didn't know anything about the Jewish inside me. My parents was not in the church. They never talk about things that was religion. But my mother, when she come to be a little forgetting, and she felt that she lost control over her mind, and she died with that, and not Alzheimer, but the other one that she died because she didn't want to eat or drink anything, so they let her die. And before she started to forget, she started to write a book about her life. But I was young, and I have just got my second child, and the father of my child, I lived with him without being married, and he was very demanding, and I have no time to read my mother's book, and I was emotional, not ready either to read it. So my sister, adopted sister, her daughter, she was talking to me about she was so much into God, and they were in the church and all that things. And I know today that it was a big lie, only to steal from me. So I sent her the book my mother wrote. She didn't release a book, but she write a book and place it in a big envelope. And I emotional couldn't read it after her pass away, because it was very much going on in that time with her death. And so she tricked me, my adopted sister, tricked me to send her the whole book. So I never read the book, or else I maybe have find out something that have with the Jewish life to do. And she maybe was telling me the truth in her book. But she never completed because she was gone in her brain earlier than the book was done. But it was about maybe 200 sides that she have written by hand, because there were no, it was started to come computers, but she didn't have a computer, so she write by hand. And I will never get it back. So that the truth had to come in another way from where I am coming from, really. My mother was 42 years old when she gave birth to me, and my father was 45, and he was not around because he was drinking very much. And I understand everything today about why they act like they did, because my mother told me that she was frightened to visit her mother-in-law, the father-in-law, my grandfather of my mother's side. He was killed before I was born, so I never come to know him, and he was killed in an accident, a car accident, and my grandmother, she also had passed away before I was born. My grandmother on my grandfather on my mother's side, he was also dead before I come to this world. And I had only my grandmother that lived. But just when I was born, she got a stroke in her head, and she was laying in the hospital until I was 12, and then she died. So there was nothing I could ask her about, because she had hard to speak. She had half of her side of her body was paralyzed. So she was laying in a bed most of the time, if someone not helped her up in a wheelchair. And then we come sometimes to her, and she lived far away from us. She was laying in the hospital 7 years, and we live far away from her, so it was rare when we come and bring her out from the hospital. And then she still had her home out far away, out in the country, in the forest, because my aunt was paying for. She buy the house from my grandmother, but my grandmother didn't know. And then when we come to my grandmother to visit her, we bring her out, and we were going to her old home. And she was very happy to come and be for a half day, for some hours, out there far out in the forest, and see how it was. And my aunt, she didn't have time to change the house, and maybe she didn't wanted it, so it looked the same like she from that day when she get the stroke and come to the hospital. So I don't know if she really felt like she have lost the house. So we were there and have a feast and talking, and it was very nice, because my mother, she had seven siblings, and two men that was born in the beginning and in the end, and then between there was it girls. And the man on my mother's side, they didn't want to do business or anything, so that was very strange, because the youngest man, he was a hunter. He lived in the forest, and he was in the industry worker. He was not married, but had a woman in his life. But she was it can be a little clue about it, because that woman, she couldn't have any children because the doctor have taken her away, the ovary from her. So she was this force that they did on Jewish, or if it was something wrong with her brain. They, in that time, in the early 50s, late 40s, they did that in Sweden, and I think it was close. Maybe in the 70s they stopped it. So they took away, and I don't believe what my mother say to explain why she couldn't have children. And my mother say that she have lots of brothers and live as the only girl with many brothers. So they thought that she should get babies with her brothers. But I met her. I remember her, and she was not stupid. She was not mental sick. She was not disabled in her brain. She was a normal person, and she always had this longing for a child. And once she wanted to adopt me, and I had my son in that time, and I didn't had any man in my life, and she said that she could take care of us, and that we could be adopted of her, and that had been nice, but I couldn't do that, and so it was a time when my mother still was alive, so I couldn't do that with her. And so it can be a sign that she was Jewish. So my uncle, he had lived with her in the forest, far away from old people, and then I also have a hint of that. The oldest uncle, he was together with, I think they were married, but she told me once when I was teenager and met her, she told me about her childhood that was very, very cruel, bad, and they were very poor, her family, and she told me about her brother was sick, and she was walking around and had him almost dead on a sledge, and was knocking on doors to those that have the money, and ask them for a little piece of butter for her brother to eat. And she told me that they scrap the walls on the door on the houses that have these shark walls to get some minerals in them. But her brother died of starving, and but she could survive as she was a girl. that could get flirting with men and get something to eat. So I think they were also Jewish. So there is some hints, but it's sad that I don't know so much about the Jewish in me and in my mother and my father's family, because both are Jewish. And I don't know how it count this, who am Jewish and who am not. I don't know, as no one have talked to me about these kind of things. So it's a website I have here. That's why I sit in front of my computer, the laptop I have, and I sit and talk in my tablet for you. And who is Jewish? It says the Swedish Jewish Central, those that decide. I find this website because they say who is accepted of religions, traditions, who is accepted in Sweden. And on the Jewish, it says that the Jewish people, the tradition is okay in Sweden today, but there is no information. So I look at it on a website that was not on that place. Maybe the Jewish have taken away that by themselves, or is it the Nazi party that is the next biggest party that is in Sweden today, have taken that away. So it says, who am Jewish? It says in Swedish. I don't know if there is. No, it's only in Swedish. So I have to translate it. It's no one in Sweden. We don't registrate people that where they are coming from. We don't registrate like they do in United States, and say that is a black person like that. We don't do that. It's we can say, the police can say they are from a special country, but not the skin color, and they don't talk about our beliefs. They don't do that. So it says here they don't. This is a correct website. I read. It's not the person that I have written here. This is this consulate for Jewish in Sweden, and they think it's about 20,000 in the Jewish law definition, and there is about 6,000 is member of the Jewish society in Sweden. And then is come my ancestors. I always talk about my ancestors in the Jewish way. 1774 came Aaron Isaak. So, and I know now that I am from Aaron Isaac's brother. So he was born 1730 to 1816 in Stockholm. He was doing this. He was a smith. He was doing these gold medallions for wealthy people for the king. And he come from Mecklenburg in Germany, but in that time Sweden had this part of Germany. And he was the first that was allowed to live in Sweden without convert to the Lutheran church. Aaron Isaak encouraged of Gustav III, the third Gustav, to move to Sweden because of the king wanted to have this knowledge Aaron Isaak had with a connection with a business around here. We were together here historic that Sweden, Germany, Denmark around us, the lake there, East Baltic Sea. There we have a communication and we have a business going on. Today we have that kind. Today also, but we have that with Denmark. Where I live, in very south of Sweden, we belong to Copenhagen's business, but not the other parts of Sweden. It's only here in the south, because we are around the lake. I can see Denmark from my window. So he come to Stockholm and do this with gold plates and also work with rocks. And then it says who come to Sweden and Russia, East Europe come 1880 until 1930. But then they were married into Sweden. Also, that's not counting. And in Germany was it about 1930 was the most coming to Sweden. And Norway and Denmark 1942 and 43. That was in the Second World War. So they don't count how we come. My ancestor come to Sweden because we come from knowledge about business. It was money that was talking. And this is, it come people that have survived this camp that Hitler had in 1945. And Hungary come 1956, Czechoslovakia 1968, Poland 1968 to 70. And Israel come 1970 about, and Russia come 1990 to 2005. So that is then those that come as running away from bad situations. But my ancestor come earlier because of business, and they were good workers. and the royals wanted to be friends with them. That's why it's I know that from today that the royals was interested of their knowledge, but also they don't see them as Jewish, so they started to bring them into the royal family. That's why I have so much royals in my family tree. They didn't see them in that way. They see them as worker, business, money. So it says historic here, 1718 to 72. It was how the Jewish people that come into Sweden should behave and what they could do and not to do. And Aaron Isaak come to Sweden in 1774. So he was 44 years old, and come to Sweden as the first Jewish could be Jewish and not convert to Christianity. So I don't know just now, but I think his brother is in the Jewish cemetery in Stockholm, so he must have been Jewish. And 1776, the Jewish community in Stockholm began, and that was Aaron Isaak that did it. And then 1782, the Jude Reglementen, how Jewish should live their life here in Sweden. And they couldn't live out in the forest. I am in a school, so I know more than I read here. They were not allowed to live out in the country. They had to live in the city. And then they couldn't live in old cities. They first they could only be in Stockholm and Gothenburg and Malmö, and then they be here where most of my ancestors have lived. There is Norrköping and they built a synagogue there in those cities. So it was 1779 where they were allowed to build synagogue in Stockholm, and then those three other cities that I talk about. And it was not Malmö. I was wrong there. It was Gothenburg, Stockholm, and Norrköping, where my ancestor most belonged to, and they belonged to Stockholm and Norrköping. And then they did build a synagogue in Karlskrona that is not so far away from here. And then it be complicated when they had this, that they limit the Jewish how to could live and how they could work, because they were not allowed to have any a normal work. They were allowed to be a businessman, and like Aaron Isaak, working with like Messersmith, be And that's why it started with that name, Smith, also. It's a shorter name of Messersmith. And so it be very complicated. So they stopped it. 1870, they stopped this reglement to limit Jewish. And then 1870, the Jewish got the membership, Swedish citizen they could be. Before that, they were not. They were a second citizen, second class citizen. And 1951, religions, freedom for religions come to Sweden, but it was still that we were born Lutheran if they don't told the Swedish government that they have another religion. If they didn't say that, all people was baptized into the Lutheran Church in Christianity. And 1999, so it's not long time ago, they got this that they are a minority of special people in Sweden. That is, gypsies, for example, had the same. And those up in the north with the reindeers. Not Santa, but these people up in the north. And those that is on the border between Sweden and Norway and Finland, that they are special people and they have their own rules and talking, but of course they can speak Swedish, but it's a group of itself. So that's what is about, and you understand that is not what it is in other countries. This is special for Sweden, and to could work and get some freedom of earning much money, they were forced to convert to the Lutheran Church, or they, like my parents, their mother and fathers, they never registered them as Jewish. So it's be automatic that they belong to the Lutheran Church. So it doesn't need to be that they choose to be Lutheran. When they were more interested to earn money and have a nice home and live out in the country, my parents built a house, summer house. We live in the city, but we have a summer house in the forest, and that my father couldn't have built if he was Jewish in that time. He did it in when it was the Second World War, and the government have not the eyes on what people were doing in that time, because it was this with Hitler that get their attention. So so far I have not seen any paper of be Jewish in any papers, but I have paid the archive, and I have told them to special check out if there is saying somewhere about Jewish in those papers. But my mother, it was a little hard, because my mother, she didn't know her grandfathers on her mother or father's side, and I find them because of the DNA. It's you can't work on it on your own DNA, but first when God was telling me 2016 when I was in Jerusalem. First, before I took the flight to Israel, and some month before that, I heard from God that I should travel to Israel, visit Israel, and then I should find a man that was in Israelite Samarian people. So I should go to Holon city, and I didn't know what it was, and I only knew his name, what I should ask for. His name, Benjamin Sedaka, and I didn't know. I come to the hotel, a Russian hotel in Tel Aviv, and I asked the man there that bring me into my room, and I asked him if he could call this man, and he looked at me like, "What? Do you know him?" like that. So I understood he was very known in Israel. And I say, I don't know how to call him. And so the man at the hotel called Holon and Benjamin Sedaka. And I say, I want to come and talk to you. I am going to visit you. I didn't say that God had told me to visit him. And then I come to Holon with a taxi, and the taxi driver did know him, so he found the home very quick, and he come in with me, the taxi driver, because he wanted to shake his hand with Benjamin Sedaka. So famous was he. And the strange things was that the Benjamin Sedaka, he traveled all over the world because he have written a book. He have translated their Israelite Samarian peoples. They have their own kind of Torah, and they study the Jewish. They are in the Jewish, but they also have their own Torah. They study the Torah, but they have their own also written down oral history, and they claim to have been with Moses in the desert this was this people, and I know that Benjamin Sedaka was from Egypt. I say to him, "You are from Egypt," and he say, "How can you know that?" He say, "I sit here in Holon in Israel. I say that God is telling me this, that you are from Egypt." I say to him, "God saying that." And he laughed and he said that the whole family was from Egypt. And then he asked, "Why do you come here?" And I say, "God told me to come here and visit you." And he asked, "How did you know where I lived?" And I say, God told me your name, and he showing me a map where you lived, that you live in Israel. And Benjamin, he could have been on the other side. He could have been to other side of the earth and promote his book. But he was at home when I wanted to find him. I could have been 0 in our meeting, but that isn't when God doing things. And then I was to the museum, the Friends of Science Museum in Jerusalem, and I had a taxi to that place because I have bought the ticket in Sweden, and then it was a time for me to visit the museum, so I needed to take the taxi to come in time. And it was not so expensive in that time, 2016. It have been changed very much. It's been so very expensive in Israel now. But in that time I was okay because it was that I had got from a man I have got. He was mental sick, but he wanted me to do some things for him in Israel. So he paid me about $1,000 US to do those things for him in Israel. So he gave me money so I could stay in a decent place. And it was not so very much money for me in that time. And the taxi was not like $15 for from Tel Aviv to Holon, and from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And then when I was at the museum, I don't know who gave me that name on the museum, because I am not a museum lover. I never go on museum. I don't like those places. But someone before I visit Israel told me that I should go to Friends of Science and then learn. And there in the museum was it about those that helped Jewish people in the Second War. And the biggest helper and star was Royal Wallenberg, and I was impressed that he was so big. I didn't know only that he was killed over the Russia, taken to Russia and be killed. I didn't know so much about his work, but in the museum I find it out. And then, so I didn't know. Today I know that he is my ancestor, that I am related with him. And it's very much about nobles, people and royal people in that line. And I am related to him. And but I didn't know that in that time. And then we should make a picture for the 3D tree that was in one room, and we should sit down and look inside the tree. And then suddenly it's coming people that we know, people that was famous. I didn't understood it was Jewish famous people that was there, and come out from the tree, and then in the end it started to come me in the picture, that I was in that tree. And then I heard a voice saying to me that we are connected. Everyone is connected with each other from in one or another way. We are connected all over the world. And when that voice say that in the air, I understood. I understood without understand that I should do my DNA. So when I come back from Jerusalem, from Tel Aviv, from Israel, then I didn't have so much money because I have a very low retirement because I have worked for God in 22 years, so I don't have that kind of money. But I hold in. I didn't eat so much food. I only sit inside my home and save the money, and then I did it. I send DNA money to. In this time, it was Ireland that it should be sent to. And I had just that money, and then I get retirement later on. But I didn't have so much money, but I gave it to DNA test. And then I was thinking that it had nothing with me to do. And sometimes, you doubt that God have talking to you, because it seems so very odd. It seems like, no, it can't be true. And so I was thinking, it must be, I have this thinking that I have something with Jesus to do, even if I have walked away from Jesus. So I felt it, that it have something with Jesus to do. And then I'd be surprised, because I thought I was Scandinavian person only, that I was thinking, do I have some ancestor that was traveling to United States? My mother said that I had one uncle to her that was going to United States, and I think it was the devil that was talking from my aunts, her sisters. My mother's sisters, laughing at her. He didn't go to United States, America. He was in mental hospital. He was crazy, they said, but they didn't know that I should do my DNA. And he was flying. He took the boat. He's not flying in that time. He took a boat to Alaska was it? Up there in the cold landscape and was working there. And then he got a big family, and then I was thinking that's it. But today I see that was many of my ancestors was going to the Mormon church and be pioneers for them. And I know today that they were Jewish and they wanted a freedom. They couldn't stay in Sweden with all these limits for the Jewish people that live here. They have to go. And they join a Mormon church, but they also built new belief system, like this army shelter. I don't know, but they are in those big churches in the United States. They built it up. They were not only pioneers in for Mormon church, but very much was it Mormon church. And I find very early in my DNA that I find websites about Jewish people that come to the Mormon church and help to build up the church. And then my DNA is very, very much, I have very much ancestors from in United States. And then the Mormon church forbidden to have many wives. So those that was for to have many wives and many children, of course, they left United States, so they left to Mexico. And I have a connection with people that ask me, how can we be related? I live in Mexico. But it's those that ran away from Mormon church in the United States that lived in Mexico for a time. And so this, when I was 8 years old, I have visions, and my father took me to I don't know what it's called, but those that missionary church. And I remember how I loved to hear of their missionary work in India, was it in that time when I was a child. And then I asked the pastor there, I was very shy as a child. I didn't say anything, but when it come to God, because I had visions, so I wanted to know those visions I have got. And so I asked this pastor, why have God so many names? I asked. That's a question I remember. And he looked at me. What? What is she saying to me? She never say anything. And suddenly I asked him, because it was in my heart. And he said, God's ways we not always know, we people. He said to me, and then he took me on my head and shaking it, my hair and this. And I hate it. I hate that he didn't give me an answer. So I was already into God in myself without knowing anything. And it was only when my father was sober, and he was never sober. I only saw him sober when he was in the hospital. And when I was in a hospital and met my father, I didn't recognize him. I didn't know him because he was so different from when he was drunk. So my father was a drinking man, and not the sober one that I saw in the bed. I'd be very shy for him. I remember how shy I was when he was there in the bed in the hospital. So my DNA say that he was also he was a Levi. He was from the Levi and Rabbi people like my mother, but my DNA say that he come to Israel from Cyprus, Greek and Cyprus, from that direction. When my mother come from Israel up with the Franks, the Franks tribe, and coming to Germany, but they were those people that was with inside the Franks. They were Jewish. It was a split a tribe of different belief system, but the belief system that come with Aaron Isaak, they were Jewish and Orthodox Jewish. I understand why he didn't want to convert, and then he make cemetery in Stockholm in his name, and a whole area is in his name, and it's very much about him in Stockholm. So this is the first part, but also I find out yesterday that those Jewish, Aaron and his brother, I don't know what his brother did, because I don't see when he died. So I suppose that he was not staying in Sweden. He was going out from Sweden. And those Aaron Isaak and his family, they be nobles. So he was granted with to get the noble title, and when get the nobles of Gustav III and Gustav V, then they could marry Swedish nobles. So that's why I come to be very much royals in my family tree. And then also that the Swedish prince, he married Romanov, and that's where I have the Tsar, the last Tsar in Russia, that is connection with that. So it's a mix of Jewish and royals, nobles, people in my family tree. And I don't really know where the Jewish is more than Aaron Isaak, I can tell. But I don't know those people in the family tree, how much, if they were Jewish. And that's what I'm coming to know about more, because there is so much to do research on. And I have started to look at these Aaron cemetery places in Stockholm, Gothenburg and Norrköping and all those that have these cemeteries in Sweden of Jewish. So it's not easy. It's not easy when they were not ordinary workers, those Jewish that come to Sweden, and they become married to royals and married to nobles, and they change their names, and this is not easy. But I think I have come far in this research, but there is so much more to know. And I got to know, because I am in the school now to do this, find out the Jewish history in Sweden. And yesterday I got a mail that they told me that I could do more studies now. When I have done these studies, then I'm allowed to go at a university. There is university in Israel to go, and there is maybe something that I can work on also. But do they want a student that is soon 70 years old? I don't know what plan God have for me in Israel, and I don't know where the money is coming from, because my retirement doesn't pay for the whole staying. So I need help from people, but I have never got any help from people. And I doubt a little that I should get help from people that with names and this, that I know who they are. I have got extra money. I got extra money yesterday, and it doesn't say where it's coming from. So it's coming from God. When it doesn't say anything, it's coming from God. So far I have not got from any private person or organization these things. So I don't know how to do it. But if it have been those 4 times, 3 times I have been in Israel, and 3 times have I don't know what to do to visit Israel, how I should get money to be in Israel. But God have helped me. And it took only 1 day last time, and I say to the mental sick person that God wants me to go to Israel, but I don't have the money. And he say, you can have this money from me if you do some of the work for me in Israel, he say. So he sent me money so I could travel. But this time is to travel to Israel. The God and heaven want me to stay in 2 months. And that is very, very, very much money. And I don't know. I have got money for about 1.5 months to stay. But then is it much money around it? That is the money I have my scooter with me, and the taxi that I can take doesn't go with me to the airport. So I need to pay the taxi back and forth in 2 places 2 times if I don't stay in Israel. But at least 1 time I need to have that extra money in case I go back home. And I need to have that money to drive over the bridge, and that is about $100 each way, so $200 to have extra. Then is it to eat food in Israel, and I maybe need to take a taxi to the hospital, and in the hospital maybe there is some fee to pay. So it's not only the hotel, it's much around it also. And I don't know how to do it, but I am going to Israel. That's the only thing I know. And I'm going to visit the Golden Gate. But I understand that is not a real place. Is that area, and I have not been at that. I don't know what it's called, Rock of the Dome, where most Muslim are, but it's on the other side, is it, for Jewish people. And I think they have open for all people sometimes. I will see when I come closer to Jerusalem how to do it. So this is the first part of being. And when I did a DNA test, it come back and I be so shocked because it was 25% of my DNA showing I was Jewish. And they couldn't see this when I be Lutheran or other way it's go. It's the clear that I was Jewish in 25%, and then it be so interesting. So I did my mother's. So I did a second DNA to really understand that it was true. This great, and my mother's line is going into David's house, the house of David in Jerusalem, and the David's house, it's Joseph, the Jesus adopted father. If it's his real father, it doesn't matter, but because it's Joseph anyway, that is in the house of David, and Jesus' mother in some way a little more far away, she is in the house of David also. So that's what I know today, and I do the research more every day. I do the research, and just now it's about my Jewish DNA to bring with me to Israel, to have all the knowledge when I'm there. If I be to ask about it, it's gonna be hard in Israel to claim that I am Jewish, and that even harder to claim that God is talking to me. If God wants me to be known as a prophet, a female prophet, there have been female prophets, but later on it's only women. It's only men that can be prophets. They have closed the door for it, but it have been prophets that have been female. So I'm going to claim it. It doesn't matter what they are saying and doing. Am I a prophet? I am a prophet. I hear from God, and God is talking to me, and He don't talk like He talk to other people. So I am God's prophet, God Elohim's prophet, and I am the prophet for the whole heaven also. So thank you. If you in some way can help me, I am very thankful if you do that, and God will know that also. So you will be granted in what way you need to be granted for have done this to help me. Thank you. Oh, sorry, it was my lip that was dry. That sounded like that. So it's not the spirits talking now. They have to come and talk in other episodes. So thank you for listening, and now you know a little more about me. So God bless you. I love you, and God loves you, and all heaven loves you, that doing what you should do.